and particularly Apple, with former Microsoft COO Bob Herbold. Bob, if you don't mind indulging me on this sort of reaction Wall Street has to news events, and in this case a terror event. It can sometimes spread far and wide to other issues having nothing to do with, in this case, the travel industry.
Yeah.
What do you think of that? And when young people look at investing, and we now know that a record few are involved in these markets, concerned that they're not a safe place to be. I'm just curious, what do you tell them?
Well, I think that's been the basic driver of the big index business, Neil. I think people get frustrated by seeing reactions on a daily or sometimes hourly basis to pieces of news and realize they're vulnerable to that. And the solution is to buy the market and to hope that over the long haul, markets will do well. And consequently, the index funds have been huge winners over the last 5, 6, 7 years.
In fact, more than 9 out of 10 times they beat whatever individual stocks you pick. That's a very good and just wise point. And I always remind people in times like these, do keep that in mind throughout the crazy volatility. Having said that, and looking at the technology world, I'm wondering, Bob, if we're witnessing a leadership change. Technology is still cool. I don't minimize that. Look at what's going on with Amazon, certainly what's going on with Google, Alphabet, whatever they call themselves. But Apple is no longer the it stock anymore. That might change. But there was a time, maybe down in your Microsoft days, where Microsoft was a fuddy-duddy, and now it's not a fuddy-duddy. On Apple was all cool, and maybe Apple isn't all cool. But you're saying that despite the buying interests of the likes of Warren Buffett through Berkshire Hathaway, that there might be something longer lasting to this. Explain.
Well, the problem is lack of innovation, Neil. If you looked at the iPhone 4S versus the iPhone 6S, you'd see the only changes are that instead of offering 8 gigabits to 64 gigabits of memory, they're now offering twice that. And you say to yourself, you know, am I going to see a difference? The answer is no. And the real innovation ended for Apple in 2007, 8, 9 with the first versions of the iPhone, and we haven't seen anything since. And so what happens is they start to look like a value stock, and that's why you see Berkshire Hathaway buying a chunk of Apple. It's just like a railroad. It's just like a soft drink company, and that's the kind of thing they typically are attracted to. You also see Apple investing in another company, Uber-like competitor in China.
Yeah.
An unusual move for a company that's supposed to be an innovator.
Well,
but
unless it's
not.
all part, you're smarter this than I'll ever be, but part of a grand strategy on Apple's part to eventually get into cars, and this is a way to start. But you're right, it mystified me. But you're quite right, too, to say that, and I'm an Apple shareholder, but just to say what are they doing that's revolutionary rather than evolutionary? You could argue with Microsoft, they're doing a lot of revolutionary things right now. You could argue with Amazon, even though it seems evolutionary, what they're doing to change and advance sales on the web, it is very revolutionary, it continues to be. But I'm beginning to, what new do we see out of Apple?
That's the problem, Neil. You can look at the watch, and people had expectations of the watch, but the hot item there is Fitbit and other entries such as that. So they've been a follower in many of these categories of recent, and that's a clear signal that there's an issue in regard to hardcore innovation. The big risk for Apple is talent loss. When the really talented people within the company see that nothing fun is happening, they vote with their feet, and that's a huge risk for this company. It happens all the time in technology companies. You have to have the very best talent, and the signals are pretty clear that Apple has a real problem.
You know, Bob, I also wonder if it's a creature of its own incredible success. Any other company that could sell 50 million items of something, be it an iPad or an iPhone, I mean, those are numbers that are eye-poppingly unique. But if it's 30 million in the next period, it's deemed a disappointment. And did Apple get too big for itself. In other words, the expectations got to be so crazy that missing them by just a little bit was enough to kill it.
Absolutely. You know, I wrote this book a couple of years ago called Seduced by Success, and it's exactly, you know, what you're talking about. Companies get big, they get busy, they get bureaucratic, all of a sudden they're inward looking, and all of a sudden everybody is passing them by. It happened to Kodak, it happened to BlackBerry, over and over again. It's human nature, and it's the gifted company, it's the gifted leader that can constantly put you out in front and say, okay, that's not good enough anymore, where are we going next? And Apple is not doing it.
For now. Bob Herbold, the former Microsoft COO, just like my dad used to say, Neil, stay humble. In your case, it'll come in handy. So don't get ahead of yourself. Robert, thank you very, very much.